السلام عليكم ورحمة الله، يا أهلا وسهلا بأفخم وأغلى متابعين ومستمعين بالعالم، متابعين منصة عرب جي تي بودكاست. حلقة اليوم حلقة مميزة مع مصمم سيارات. راح أخذكم معي برحلة. أي شخص بحب تصميم السيارات، أي إنسان رسم رسمات عن السيارات، لازم تتابع الحلقة هاي. لشخص باشنت على السيارات، لشخص كان وراء عدد كتير كبير من السيارات المحبوبة، منها هيك على سبيل الذكر وليس الحصر الفورد موستنج، وعدد كتير كبير من السيارات اللي خلفي اللينكون. رئيس قسم التصميم بشركة لينكون هو ضيفنا اليوم بحلقة دردشة بزنس. السيد كمال, welcome to Dubai.
Thank you so much.
I would love to start by presenting you in person. You're the responsible for all the Lincoln lineup cars. Recently, we've driven the Lincoln Notolus. This is your last jewel from the old lineup of Lincoln. I would love to start our conversation with the latest model, the Lincoln Notolus 2024. It's an all-new generation. It has a new design language, and what's best for us and for the audience to hear it from other than the head of design himself.
Thank you so much for having me.
Could we please start with the Lincoln Notolus? What was your inspiration? What's behind the sketches? What's behind the product?
Yeah, so the latest Lincoln Nautilus, what inspired us is really, we reversed the process. We actually started thinking about the car from inside out, being a digital device first and being digitally led. As you can see on the interior, I know the exterior design is very important. That's kind of the first thing you see and catches your attention. But in this process, particularly on the Nautilus, we really thought about the process about software first and how intelligent this car is going to be. And as you all know, in 2019, 2020, we all faced a lockdown, and a lot of us start working from homes and from the cars. And the cars was the most safest place you actually want to spend most of your time. And then we observed our customers, the way they interact with their cars. A lot of them will take their first meeting from their car, or if they want to disconnect or connect to the world, they will do it inside of their car. And then we really start thinking about how you actually shape this interior from inside out, and the software really enable us to think differently than we would done in traditional way.
The inspiration was digital devices?
Digital devices.
Digital devices.
Yes, being connected, yes.
It's interesting. I've already driven the car, I've seen the Lincoln Notolus, and I think most of our audience, most of our listeners already saw our review with the Lincoln Notolus. When you've mentioned that it's been reversed back, from a designer perspective, is it really something that's been done before? Or it's a new way of thinking?
That is a new way of thinking. You know, you will, in the past you will say, okay, I have this large screen, and what do I actually do with that later on? And then instead of thinking about what am I going to do with the life cycle of the product and what type of experience I can enable in the future. So you start thinking very differently. What's the perfect position of the screen? How do you interact with the car? When you drive it, when you're in stationary moments, all of these things are completely different. It's a software design that it starts kind of first. And you have to really be careful and thoughtful, you know, giving the customer the fully connected experience that they didn't have before.
How is so far the reaction? How people perceived the Lincoln Notolus?
I think it's very positive, particularly to those who are tech savvy. I think they really understand, you know, once they drive this vehicle, how easy, intuitive it is. It's not just about being connected, but also how easy to connect it is. It just works. You know, even like the way we shaped the steering wheel, and we thought about the flat top and the bottom, that you have an easy way to look over the hood when you drive, so you have this uninterrupted driving experience. And then also when you interact with your screen, the way you can do it with your thumbs on your steering wheel, you can scroll through the entire menu of the customizable screens and put you the way you like it.
I've realized something while I'm driving the Lincoln Notolus with controlling the screen from the steering wheel. You need some time to get used to it. It's something new, very sensitive. As I know, you're not responsible for such for this element specifically, but from your side, you've driven the car several times. I believe you've had it for a longer period of time. Is it something that will grow on you and you will used to it, and it was me because it was like for a few days, or it's something that needs to be more sensitive compared to usual buttons that we're used to with the previous cars?
I think it needs a little bit of a learning curve because you imagine when you switched over from your flip phone to an iPhone, it's this kind of the same way. Now you're on the iPhone. But we also have the 11-inch input screen that it's quite easily to basically configure on your both screens as well, that you can use as well as an alternative. I think is a very nice way of using it. So again, the way we laid out this interior was the most intuitive and most ergonomically correct. The way we laid out, as you can imagine, the design process takes some time. So you experiment with different prototypes, where you have basically a joystick or different input devices, but the screen in the center at that size was particularly the one that worked out the best in terms of the ergonomics.
From what we've seen with the Lincoln Nautilus, is this like the new design language for Lincoln that will be implemented in the Navigator, Aviator, Corsair, or for each model it will have a different characters with some design elements?
Well, basically we do have a vision in DNA. We started some years ago, which is a vision of quiet flight, and now the evolution of that is like, you can see in every Lincoln there's a horizontal emphasis, and we give the maximum space on the interior to our customers. The comfort is a big one. I don't know if you ever sit in a Lincoln.
Yeah.
We have the most comfortable seats where we collaborate with some of the finest furniture makers and really understood the postures that you feel relaxed, that you don't know you never want to leave your vehicles once you sit inside of a Lincoln. And then on terms of this layout and setup, is something that we have our own DNA, and you can imagine that will then evolve into the next cycle of products.
With Lincoln Nautilus, we've received several comments around China, and people linking between Ford Motor Company. They have already planned and they have an agreements they have several agreements to produce several cars and several car models in China. What's your take in that?
Well, it is a global product. We as a global company, we basically designed this vehicle in California in Irvine Design Studio, but with engineering in China. And there's some great learnings from China, which I think there are trends that we observed, particularly, like I said, in the second row seating. There's something we learned from China, that the importance of a second row. You can see even the way the headrest are shaped, the very soft and reclining seat, the console that you can actually control the vehicle from the backside of a car. I mean, there's some great learnings from China. So we really embrace this global aspect and try to bring this into our global products.
Let's remove from the Lincoln Nautilus. This is the final product, and it's arriving to our region now in few months from now. The lineup of Lincoln, one of the most important cars for our region particularly is the Navigator. We've seen the Navigator. We know that there is an update coming for the Navigator. We want to hear more from you. What's coming in the Navigator? What's the future of this specific model?
Yeah, so the Lincoln Navigator is a very special nameplate. We invented basically a segment, if you think about it, almost 30 years ago. And it's something that we see as our youngest customer, particularly in US, and young families. They really appreciate the Lincoln Navigator for what it does for them and their families. And it's something is like it's such a strong nameplate, and we continue to build on that Navigator nameplate. With an update, as you mentioned, we'll have more to talk about when we're ready.
Design, if we put it in the angle of design, the updated one, if we can have at least a scope of percentage compared to the current Navigator, where do you put it? Like, is it 20% different? Is it 2% different? Is it?
I don't know in percentage-wise, but it's going to be quite a game changer.
Similar to the Nautilus in terms of the screens and thinking of it the same way, like a digital device. Is it going to be implemented into the Navigator?
I mean, yes. I mean, you got to think about more from an experience perspective. It's a different customer. What does it mean to them? What is their pain points? And we try into some of the vehicles to actually solve their pain points. Every car we do. And I think the next Navigator is going to address some of these pain points for the customer, and they're going to absolutely love their vehicles. The idea is behind the Navigator that even if you take the wheels of this car, that is really a great product. So imagine that when a car is stationary, you don't have any wheels, and it's still an amazing product, then you achieve something great.
Aviator Corsair, design language, refreshing the design. I know that there is a lot of competition in Aviator and Corsair segments. Notoless, it's all new. This challenges and this, I want to call it like competition in this segment. It's taking place left and right. There is Cadillacs, the Germans, Chinese coming out also with the premium brands. How do you view the competition design from a design perspective?
Well, from a design perspective, I think we have a very unique approach. It's like signatures that we use that are solely Lincoln. Like I said, particularly on the interior, the way we lay out, the way we treat the materials, the way we treat the colors. There's something significant about that. Even like the identifiers, like the front face of the car, which is at the glance, you know it's a Lincoln. And we're putting a lot of emphasis on that. You have the identity and have the cars all have their own personalities. Like the Aviator and the Corsair, they all have their own personalities versus each car.
I want to know more, Kamal, from the personality. Like Corsair, if you want to describe it in a personality.
It's the most expensive. It is the smallest vehicle. It's a small luxury SUV, but it's also is the most expressive one. If you look at the way that we style the body side on that vehicle, you can see it's very sculpted, quite athletic, and it has a great stance. And one of the things we're thinking about, like the smallest, most youngest one is also the most loudest one, is the most expressive one.
Notoless, if we want to describe it as if we're going to give it a persona.
Personality on that? I mean, that's for me is like really a smart device on wheels.
Smart device?
Yes.
If we put it in more human perspective, like is he the geek from the group? Is he the tech guru from the group? Is he...
That's a good question. I think it could be the superhero for sure. I'm thinking like some sort of a superhero that when you drive it and when you even pick up your friends and your family, he surprises you. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises that people when say sit inside of the Nautilus, they'll be quite delighted. You know, even for a passenger, how much more experience. You know, it used to be. It's only focused for the driver, but I think now you can share these experiences.
Especially with the screen, the huge screen, it grabs a lot of attention.
The screen, even the digital sense, something we put in the Nautilus, it's something very unique, you know, that you have this digital scent, that you have 3 different themes, and you can actually invite your friends and family, let's say, and you can let's say, and rejuvenate in our car and just sit for a moment for 10, 15 minutes and you'll feel refreshed. That's the very first time we approach something like that.
Aviator.
Yep.
As a character, as a persona, who's in the family?
I would say the super mom.
Super mom?
Yeah.
It's more into a mom with kids and...
No, the mom,
not the soccer mom.
Not the soccer mom, no. But I think like an affluent female, which knows very well, has a very established career, and also has children to taking care of. I think that's kind of like the personality. And even like the way we thought about it, if you look at the console, we thought about the space, we observed the female buyers. The first thing they do, they put a purse. So we actually enabled them space to put it securely so it doesn't fall over the seat. So we actually put a lot of thoughts into that.
Navigator.
The Navigator. I think it's, you know, I'm thinking now maybe the Fantastic Four, the superheroes. Which one would that be? Is
the father,
the intelligent one, yeah.
A successful father with 2, 3 kids.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
it could be.
Yeah.
Future products. We've seen the lineup, and I do believe that there will be an expansion for the lineup. What's the things that has been in your office for quite a while in the studio design with all your team, and it's been creating it needs a lot of attention from you recently?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're obviously thinking about, as you said, the world is changing quite rapidly and radically, and I think the cars are getting so much more intelligent and connected, I think, which at the same time enable us to think very differently. The car not just being driving from A to B, but being so much more. And I think that's kind of what we we use that knowledge and we observe that very well and try to integrate it into our vehicles. But at the same time, we don't like to follow trends. We actually like to create trends and create and solve problems that the customer didn't even know about it. They existed. It's simple to solve a simple problem. If somebody wants more space, we give him more space. But to creating really desirable products and solving future problems, I think that's kind of like what keeps us busy and keeps our head spinning.
What's the thing that you believe like Lincoln has an upper hand compared to any other premium car manufacturer?
I think it's the comfort is something we own.
Comfort.
Yeah, the comfort, I think, is like something, if you think about even the American, the nature of it being just the most comfortable beds, me not being American, I was always amazed with the hospitality and the comfort in American hotels and the homes, which I think the Lincoln does really exceptionally well.
When we've mentioned, since you're a non-American citizen, you're a German citizen, I believe, can we go back a little bit with time and speak and give the audience, give the listeners a glimpse of Mr. Kamal's history?
Sure.
How it started. You were behind iconic cars, Ford Mustang, I believe, Mondeo, Fiesta. You started with Ford Motor Company, the European division. Then you decided to agree and move all the way to the state to be the head of design for Lincoln. Can we talk a little bit more about iconic cars that you were behind them? You were part of the team who built these cars?
Sure. Yeah. No, like you said, it's like just being not. For me, it was always the biggest dream to work on a Ford Mustang. I didn't know that job even existed. If you reverse back, like car designer, you realize later on actually you get paid to do something you love, because I was sketching even as a child and got a lot of trouble sketching cars in books, and your parents question them like, what's wrong with you? Like you're sketching cars, but that was my passion. And then when you discover you actually can make this your work and in your job, and that was great. And then I realized, I really loved, because you grew up in Europe, we didn't have a lot of Ford Mustangs, but when I saw one, it was just like unbelievable.
Exactly. A lot of inspirations.
You just like hear the sound and the ground shakes, and it's just something like, it's mesmerizing. And then I had to get the chance, obviously, to work in Europe. It took some time to get to the Mustang, but when the chance opened up, sometimes later, to participate in this global competition for the 50 years of Mustang, you can imagine there was 300, 400 sketches at the end, and then your sketch gets picked and chosen. It's a great honor to work, and then I had such a great, tremendous support coming to America with the team, working on the next generation Mustang. My biggest strength it was basically not knowing anything about Mustang, but I had to learn everything. So I had to sit down with the customers, enthusiasts. Then I realized there's 10 million people, behind the biggest fan base of the Mustang. And I remember going to one of the events when people found out that I'm working on a Mustang, people telling me like, don't screw up the next Mustang.
Yes.
So that was really interesting, how much fans behind this vehicle. But there's so much passion. I still love Mustangs. Really wanted to create this like a global sports car, and I think that's what we did with 50th, and now with the S650, the next generation Mustang. I think the team took it to the next level even further. And I think there's such a great potential. I mean, everybody loves a Mustang. It's the ultimate expression of freedom. Your question about me first time coming to America, to Detroit. You've been there in January. I ordered a Mustang convertible. Arrived there. Unfortunately, there was 6 foot snow, so that wasn't a good idea. But that was kind of like you wanted to experience that the freedom, and there was something really fascinating about that car. I still love it to this day.
And from in the division of Ford Motor Company in Europe, you worked also in several car models. Can we just highlight to the audience some of the cars, the projects that you were part of the team, or you were the head of the design team?
Yeah, no, I mean, in Europe, like in even the smaller cars like the Fiestas and the Mondeos and Focuses, I mean, there was a tremendous effort to global cars. We're talking about early 2000s. You're solving different problems, different markets, and I think it's interesting. You create this persona in the car around it, and who's the customer, and then you actually create these beautiful vehicles first from a sketch, once you find out what this person is that you're creating this vehicle for. And once you kind of created these 3D models, and then you go and show it to the customer research in clinics, we'll get always the feedback, which was nice to hear. And then you know you're doing something right. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Like every product I worked on, there was quite a few, as you can imagine, over 20 years now. You always kind of get excited as a designer. There's never a boring, dull moment, because you always come in the studio and design studio and you create the next product. And people always ask me, what's your favorite car? And I would say it's the next one. It's not out yet. We're working on it.
It's just questions just pop up in my head. With all the love to the Mustang, you don't think, as the head of design of Lincoln, that having a Lincoln, a premium Mustang with a badge of a Lincoln, you don't I know it sounds crazy, but if we put them together, you don't think there is a room? I mean, Mercedes, they have SL with Maybach edition. BMW, they have the 8 Series with also packaged where it's premium. You don't think there is a room for all these 10 million fans of a Mustang that they will go for something more premium to be badged as Lincoln?
I think that's a great idea.
What do you think?
That's a great idea.
Shall we pitch it to the board? I want to before finishing up with our interview, Kamal, I just want a final conclusion from you, going back into times from a fan of sketching cars, from a younger designer, to the younger designers who's listening, who's watching today. There is millions of people who's fanatic about cars. They love cars, they love design cars, they sketch cars all the times on their notebooks, on their school books, and even on their desks. What's your recommendation? What's your advices to the younger designers?
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I mean, we all started that way. I mean, just don't lose your passion. It will get hard sometimes, and you might get discouraged, but don't lose your focus. I think it's very important. And then don't feel free to ask. I mean, like when I didn't know, I would ask the experts. I will reach out to them and ask. And I still get hundreds of emails and requests from people from universities sending me direct messages on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help them and ask them and guide them and review their portfolios and give them some advice. I think we all started that way. But don't lose if you really love what you do, you just have to kind of follow through and execute.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Kamal, and we wish you a pleasant stay in Dubai. Best of luck with the Notulus, and I look forward to see your new projects, whether the Navigator first or Corsair. I don't know. You've tried your best to hide it from me, but I look forward for the next Lincoln product. أعزائنا ومستمعينا الكرام، منصة عرب جي تي بودكاست، حلقة سريعة مع السيد كمال، رئيس قسم التصميم بشركة لينكون. أتمنى تكون الحلقة أعجبتكم. لا تنسوا تشتركوا بالقناة، تابعونا، إن شاء الله عندنا عدد كتير كبير من الحلقات قادمة مع ناس ومدراء متخصصين بهذا المجال ليعطوكم خلف الكواليس. أنتوا تشوفوا دائما منتج سيارة، نعرفكم على الناس اللي خلف هذا المنتج، كيف بيفكروا فيه وكيف بيصنعوه.